Hi, I'm Joan Newcomb, and today's walk and talk is visions, manifestations, and portals. So we're coming up to a really powerful weekend. The 21st is the eclipse, and then 24 hours later, just about 24 hours later, is the fall equinox. Both of these things are pretty potent combinations. So from my experience with nature, equinox is like the new year for nature. It's like after the harvest, and it's when the plans and soil preparation for the next year's crops are created. And then it goes to December when everything seems to go underground, but really it all goes up to the architecture level, the devas of nature, to work on the plans. It's a pretty potent time where you celebrate the previous year. I guess you do that at the solstice. And you're calling in a new cycle in the fall equinox. So that's one part of it. And then eclipses happen every 6 months, and they go in 2-year cycles. So we're in a pretty potent one for a lot of people. And the great thing about eclipses is they are portals of change, and you can align yourself with those portals to help manifestation happen more quickly. But the other thing that happens is that change happens, manifestation happens, whether you want it to or not, and sometimes it's sudden and shocking. Sometimes it happens and you knew it was happening, you just hadn't seen it realized till then. Another tidbit I'm just remembering about eclipses is to not react immediately to them. Give some time, 5 days a week after that eclipse, to actually implement changes, because during an eclipse time there's a lot going on. Sometimes you find yourself going in the opposite direction than what you want to. But the other thing I wanted to talk about today is about visions. A vision is something that you can use to create your future. I used to not place a lot of stock in visions. I don't think of myself as a visual person. I'm a writer. I like to put things into words. If I go to a museum, or used to, I'm a little better now at museums, but when I used to go to a museum, like an art museum, I'd run through it looking for the cafeteria and the restrooms. I have a cousin who used to be a grade school art teacher and is a very talented artist. And she and I went to the museum together, and she taught me all about Impressionist art, which was useful because our great-grandmother was first cousin to Mary Cassatt. So that's why we went. There was an exhibit of Mary Cassatt. So I found that visions are a good way to communicate to greater consciousness. Just a reminder that you are greater consciousness. So it's a good way to communicate to greater consciousness what you'd like to bring into form. The thing I find is it's good to have, for me, a vision of what I want. I've heard that it's good to have emotion in it that helps bring it about. But for me, it's to have a vision of what I want. And then also, you're releasing it to greater consciousness, which has a bigger imagination than you do. So myself is greater consciousness. I have a bigger imagination than I do in this little limited form, because I'm also constantly editing my visions to fit the circumstances. And sometimes circumstances completely change. Some things to think about as we're coming up to this weekend, and I post these on Sunday. So Sunday and Monday, I believe, are the days that this change is really happening, and you can take advantage of it. Now, the other thing is, eclipses do have an influence for several days afterwards. I think this is a new moon eclipse. you can also see the effects of it a month afterwards. Just be attuned to that. And if you want to go more deeply into it, you can look on YouTube for all the astrologers there that are telling you more details. I am not an astrologer. I am a trained clairvoyant and energy healer, but I didn't have the math skills for astrology. I respect it, especially those astrologers that use their math skills and don't pull out tarot cards. Tarot cards are a great intuitive tool, but my training as a clairvoyant bypassed that. So you don't really need a tool, you just need your clairvoyance. Think about your life, and we had an eclipse on the 7th of September as well, so this is the 21st and 22nd that I'm talking about of 2025, depending on when you see this. So you might have already had some portals opening. You might be in this liminal space. The thing I found is that it's been very disorienting between the 7th and the 21st, because it is kind of a liminal space and there's huge changes. There's some oppositions, Neptune, I think, and Pluto oppositions too, that are influencing us, but we're all going through some pretty amazing transformations. When you can connect with yourself as consciousness, align yourself as consciousness, and see the big picture as consciousness, then it's a lot easier to go through this, even if it's really uncomfortable and you don't want to let go of some of the visions that you have, or the relationships you have, or any of the other things that are being influenced. It's easier to go through when you realize that you are consciousness. And actually, this is a hologram. One last revelation, which I think I might have talked about last week, but the revelation I had about changes in the hologram and not changing other people is, it's really, I am consciousness. This is my hologram, and when I can change my fundamental pictures or patterns, then everything else changes. So that's a little clue for you. So think about if anything like this has been happening in your life. If so, leave me a comment below. I love to read your comments. And if you like these videos, please share them with your family and friends and on your social media. Please click the thumbs up button, the heart button, like, subscribe, all those things. Tell the algorithm to share this far and wide, to get this out to someone who really needs to see this information. And if you want to know more, my website is joan-newcomb.com. And I will see you next week on another Walk and Talk.